Hi there, I'm Kylie Mowbray Allen from Hello Media.
And I'm Jenny Walk from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you're tuning into Bite Size Business Live Podcast, the show that helps business owners get clarity and insight to grow their dream business.
Whether you're launching, ready to scale, or figuring out what's next, we discuss the nitty-gritty, the hard bits, the opportunities, and the behind the scenes, and share how we've grown our own companies and helped others do the same.
We're glad you're here.
So today's a really great topic, Jenny, and it's really your wheelhouse, talking about that messy middle part of business and how to ride the waves of business growth and expectations. So share with me your top one thing. If I said to you, what does that mean? Or tell me one thing I could do to understand how to get through this, what would you say?
I think that the big top tip is about actually building your business and building your business model so there's flexibility and adaptation can be built into the business. I think the biggest challenge a lot of business owners have is they start with this kind of idea of what things should look like. They follow a model designed by somebody else for someone else's context. And then when it doesn't work for them, the wheels fall off and they're like, oh my God, I can't do it. I'm not sure what's happening, because they're following a rigid plan that doesn't actually fit them or their context. So I think the key thing and the number one tip when you're building a business to get sustainability and success long term is to make sure you're building the business that fits your context, the way you want to work, the product and services you're selling and your clients. Make sure it fits that context, because then it allows you to bring in all those ideas of, whether it's family or travel or different types of clients or different delivery methods, that's all built into your business model, rather than doing that cookie cutter model, which says this is how you run a business based on some kind of fantasy land about what business should look like.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, a fantasy land about what business should look like. So I read this great blog the other day that someone had said, it's all a lie. It's all a myth. The 1 hour a day or the 1 hour a week, entrepreneur business, blah, 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 isn't actually happening, because you still need to be marketing yourself. So even if you're happy with the setup, you've still got to be looking out there, getting new clients, etc. But also just showing up on socials.
But even if you look at the 4-hour work week, he wasn't saying only work 4 hours a week. It's doing 4 hours on the administration, the operations in the back end, set your systems up well. But that doesn't mean that he's only doing 4 hours a week. It's the 4 hours a week of the stuff you don't like. As you said, there's still marketing, there's still showing up, there's still delivery, there's all the other things that you still need to do to create a business. And I love that, because it is a myth, this idea of and I guess that's why I wanted to add this idea of business growth and expectation, right? Because we get stuck, particularly at the moment, around, and I talked about this when I was in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago at Gatherama, that we have this belief structure that we need to be doing things like this. And the reality is you cannot work on that time frame and in that speed consistently. You might be able to do it for sometimes, but then it is a wave. You can go, I'm going to put all in, I'm going to be, work 24/7 for a week because I have XYZ to deliver, whether it's in my world writing tenders, client delivery, or whether it's you doing Zoom calls with clients in Australia and overseas at the same time as doing your training. We can sustain that for a short period of time. And if you plan for those waves, then that works really well. But you can't be expected to work at that pace forever and at all times, because the majority of us need downtime. The majority, I'm not saying everybody, because some people have that ability to kind of be on 24/7 forever. Great. Love you, want to know what your secret is. But the idea, the majority of people need to have this downtime, and this wave is really important. So creating your business to meet those waves of demand and requirements. Like at the moment, our business, we've been really lucky, but in the last 4 weeks, we've had 5 tenders to submit and we've got 2 this week. And so, and that's an unusual amount, but it's coming up to the end of 30th June. So we know a lot of organizations go to market at this time. So for us, we're in a really intense time that, when we need to, we're writing lots and lots of tenders, as well as trying to do delivery, do our socials and everything else. So we know it's intense. But we know in 2 weeks' time, or when it gets to the 1st of July, there's probably no tenders for the first month of July. It's the first month of next financial year, because people are consolidating. So building your business around the wave, I think, is really important. So building that flexibility in, it allows you to pivot and change when you need to. You can rise with the demand and the challenges, and you can respond to them. But then you've got time to step back and go, okay, that part of my business is done. Now let's move on to the next piece. So it kind of, I'm going to be bold to go into the second reason. And the second piece is actually about being really clear. And I've talked about this a lot. You go to my website, it says clarity is the answer to everything. It truly is. Making sure that whatever you're doing is aligned with your purpose and mission, your North Star, whatever you want to call it, and taking you towards that is absolutely critical when you're riding this growth wave and this expectation. So you might have someone saying, hey, this is an amazing opportunity. It will grow our business exponentially. But if it's growing it away from your mission, then it's not the right opportunity for you. If it's taking you towards your mission, then jump at it and go on that wave. But I think we're so used to this idea of we have to grab every opportunity in every aspect at every time. We actually end up pulling ourselves in multiple different directions. And I mentioned last week, there's a couple of colleagues of mine who have now come out and said, look, I have burnout. I'm kind of taking a step back because it's all too much for me. That's often the case because they've felt like they've had to show up in ways that are not authentic and not aligned to them. And that's that expectation piece, right? I have to do it because someone else is doing it, because we're comparing ourselves to other people. And look, I'm not going to lie, I've done that myself. Oh, we all have that imposter syndrome point. We always go, oh, but they're doing this and shouldn't I be doing that, right? The reality is there is no should. You only should do it, or you only do it if it aligns with your mission. If it doesn't, watch other people and, wave them goodbye and say congratulations, but step away.
It's a great tip, Jenny. And the really big one there is, how do you even know what it is you want long term when you're stuck in that messy middle? How do you know what that North Star is? Or it might just be, I want financial freedom or whatever, but what does that actually mean? And that's what I think so great about working with you, is really pulling it all apart and working out, where do I even want to go? And what's my 1-year plan, my 5-year plan? And yes, that all might shift, but it's actually understanding and also working with Ash about what's really at your core, for what are your values, et cetera, to actually find a way to navigate yourself there.
I agree. And I think, you've kind of alluded to the conversations that we're having at our Growth Trio workshops when we're doing those in person. And each of us, though, although we're talking quite different topics, have a very similar message and a similar alignment, in the sense that you need to be clear about what you're trying to do, whether it's social media, whether it's personal development, whether it's working on your own mindset. You need to understand what you're working for. Because if we don't, then we're essentially just doing stuff for the sake of doing things, and it becomes busyness. You have that conversation of, I'm always busy. And someone had a conversation with me many years ago, and there's a great book by Tony Crabb called Busyness, and I love it, or called Busy. And it's basically about how we fill our day with stuff, making ourselves feel busy. So when we don't have stuff to do, we either feel unproductive or we feel like we're not doing what we should be doing. My mum is visiting me from down south. I organised my morning yesterday. Yes, I've got 2 tenders to write this week, but I took a couple of hours yesterday afternoon and hung out with mum and talked about the wedding, and we just had downtime. I checked my email maybe 3 times. I had a phone call, and that was my afternoon. And I gave myself permission to have time instead of having busyness. And I think we get stuck in this idea that we have to be on this churn. Whereas that's that kind of hustle. You and I hate that word hustle. It's that kind of idea about I have to hustle. I always have to be trying to get the next opportunity. Now, sure, if you do that, you might grow exponentially in a short term, but then you get burnt out and then you fail and then you have to start again because you've exhausted yourself and you're like, well, that didn't work and let's do it again. You haven't learned the lesson. And I think that's why I love the conversation that Ash has and you and I have together around clarity. Clear about what you want to do, make sure what you're doing is aligned to that. So when you're riding the waves and you actually plan your wave, you're like a surfer looking at the water going, okay, I know how to ride that wave. I know exactly where I'm going to get on. I know exactly the tasks I'm going to do. And then I know when I'm going to get off it. That's essentially what we need to do in business, but we don't think about it like that. We just think of go, 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 go.
Absolutely. And the pandemic was the best teacher for us all. Never before had we had something so widespread that made us even think about the word pivot. So obviously that became a thing, but then looking at other options, but also planning for anything that might just turn up in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good big learning curve for us all. I wouldn't, maybe not good, but
I think it was a blessing in disguise. It's one of those things, right? And I think the other piece around that allows you to do it, and it's the one piece a lot of us get stuck on. And there's more and more social media articles and content coming out, and you would say it's not just about always having to show up and be you. Yes, you need to be seen, but you can find a way to be authentic to engage with your audience. And I think that's the critical piece is even when I look at other people's social media, you and I talk about social media and how we show up. Showing up differently is okay if it's authentic to you, but it's also if you want to look exactly like someone else on a social media account and you've bought their templates and you've bought their process and you're like, that's working for them, it's going to work for me. If it's authentic and aligned to you, then it probably will be really successful. But you see a lot of people buying those templates, spending a lot of money on follow my cookie cutter process on social media, and then they don't get the outcomes they're looking for, because they haven't realized that what that person is selling or what they're trying to do doesn't align with their offering or the way the person wants to work or their vision or even their approach to business. And if there isn't alignment, you're always going to feel like you're being pulled away. It's kind of like a hair elastic that eventually breaks. It works for a while, and then at one point it goes, I've had enough, I'm out.
Absolutely. And that's the same with the coaches that you work with. You and I were both working with the same sales coach there for a while. While I loved the kick up the bum and all that kind of side of it, I didn't like the you need to pick up the call and be on the phone for 20 minutes each morning approach, because it's not me. It's brilliant for some.
That's right.
Not at all brilliant for me. And I remember it wasn't something that was aligned with you either.
No, and yeah, we plot along in our business. We have a fairly organic approach. We do some Facebook ads and we're doing some ads around just to get us known in new audiences, but we're not as probably as strong and as targeted as a lot of other businesses. But people who want to work with us, find us, connect with us, listen to what we're saying and go, actually, that will work. That will align with what my business wants. And I'd much rather have, 6 to 8 really amazing corporate clients a year and a bunch of phenomenally engaged small businesses working to grow their business with empire builders than to have 100 businesses on my books, because 100 businesses means that I'm really not aligning with them. I'm not putting engagement. I'm also probably not invested in them, to be honest, because you can't manage that number of clients a year. Whereas I know what my sweet spot is, so we work to that and we ride that wave. And so we've developed that because we've learned the lesson. We've learned when we've burned ourselves out. We've done what everyone else has done. You start small, you have no money, and you have to hustle for the world. And then you realize this ain't working for me. And that's the lesson. That's fundamentally the lesson in how you balance is you need to learn when it's no longer working for you and then realign to find something that will work for you.
It's so brilliant, Jenny. So what would be, to sum that up, what would be the one takeaway of all of that gold that you just shared?
I think it's a really simple takeaway. Build your business to work for you. Fundamentally, build your business in a way, in a style, in a framework, build a business model, a sales model, all those things that align with who you are and what you want your business to be in the future. Not what it's now, but what you want it to be. Have a stretch, have an extension, work towards something, be a little bit uncomfortable and be okay in that. If you do that and you're constantly finding that new space and stretching into that space and going, okay, this is good, let's keep moving, you will have a business that's not only successful, but it will be sustainable. And that's fundamentally aligned with success. It's not just about short-term wins. We're talking about sustainability, long-term legacy and success. That's what I believe we're trying to create.
Brilliant. Brilliantly said. I love it. Jenny, thanks so much. Every time you talk about that, it reminds me, I have little flashes in my brain about, that's right, that was what you said you were going to do, and you do still want to head in that direction. So It's very easy to become a little unstuck or to lose sight of where you're headed. So thanks for the reminder.
Well, I think it's an important time, right? We've got lots of stuff going on. I also want to talk to the fact that at the moment, the world, everything is going fast forward. We're coming up to the end of 30 June. You're seeing a lot of people doing end of financial year sales and deals and all those things. And I love that for everybody because it's a really great sales strategy. You and I talk about that. You talk about that with your clients. When you're looking at jumping into your next learning and development thing, when you're looking at your next professional development thing, which is really important and making sure you can ride that wave, make sure you're choosing something that's still aligned with you. Don't just do it because it's cheap and it's there and it's available, right? because it will always be available. There will always be an end of financial year, a Black Friday, a sale. Like, we know that. So make sure that your choices are deliberate and intentional, and build your business in that way. And then we move forward, and, you know, and we'll be still talking to each other in 5 years, because you and I do that. We do things intentionally, right? So just remember, it's the time of year where everyone's going to be at you. There's going to be a lot of noise. Take a step back and keep that alignment. And then that will allow you to get through this next, 6-week wave.
Perfectly said. And also, does it actually serve you to discount your products or your services? Where does that put you in 3 months' time?
Exactly.
So discounting in your business isn't right for you. You don't have to join the party.
100%. Choose what's right for you. I love that you finished on that. That's amazing. Kylie, I know we're getting close to the end of our session today. It's been so great to chat to you. I'm looking forward to chatting in our next catch up. I know in a couple of weeks we have the Raw Awards, which I'm so excited about, which is you and I for this amazing podcast. So thank you for those people who have listened in and tuned in our podcast, because we're up for Podcast of the Year for Raw Awards, which is very, very exciting. So for those, stay tuned, because you might hear in a couple of weeks that we've been a winner. But thank you everyone for tuning in and supporting our Bite Size Business Life podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us so you don't miss any future episodes. Kylie, it's always a pleasure. You have an amazing day. Stay intentional, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye now.